Most men think arguments with women are normal. They think fights, emotional explosions, and endless misunderstandings are just part of relationships. But what if I told you that most of those conflicts are not random, they're predictable, and more importantly, they're preventable? In fact, once you understand a single psychological principle about how women process emotional signals, something strange starts to happen. Arguments start disappearing, misunderstandings shrink, and the same conversations that used to explode into drama suddenly become calm, even cooperative. Now, before you jump to conclusions, this isn't about manipulation. It's not about winning arguments. And it definitely isn't about becoming a passive guy who agrees with everything just to keep the peace. Because the truth is, the men who never fight with women are not weaker. They're actually operating on a completely different level of psychological awareness. They understand something about female emotional processing that most men never even notice. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Think back to the last argument you had with a woman. Maybe it started with something small, a comment, a misunderstanding, a slightly irritated tone. Nothing serious, but then something strange happened. Within minutes, the conversation escalated far beyond the original issue. The topic changed. Emotions intensified. And suddenly you're not even arguing about the same thing anymore. Most men walk away from situations like this confused. How did that turn into such a big fight? But what they don't realize is they just witnessed one of the most powerful psychological dynamics in male-female communication, what psychologists sometimes call emotional amplification. Women are extraordinarily sensitive to emotional signals, not just words, tone, energy, micro-expressions, subtle shifts in voice. Research consistently shows that women detect emotional cues in communication far more quickly and accurately than men. Their brains are literally wired to notice changes in emotional atmosphere. From an evolutionary perspective, this made perfect sense. For thousands of years, women were responsible for reading the emotional states of infants who couldn't communicate with words. A tiny change in a baby's cry could mean hunger, fear, pain, danger. The women who were best at detecting these subtle emotional signals raised children who survived. And that sensitivity didn't disappear. It became part of how women interpret relationships, which means something most men never realize. When you communicate with a woman, she is not only hearing your words, she is absorbing your emotional state. And then, she reflects it back, but amplified. Think of it like an emotional echo. If you walk into a canyon and shout with anger, the echo comes back louder. If you whisper calmly, the echo returns softly. In many ways, women function like emotional echo chambers. They amplify the emotional tone you bring into the interaction. A small amount of irritation from you becomes larger irritation from her. Your frustration becomes bigger frustration. And suddenly both of you are feeding emotional fuel into the same fire. But the opposite is also true. If you bring calm confidence, warmth, emotional stability, that energy gets amplified too, and the entire dynamic of the conversation changes. This is where most men unknowingly sabotage themselves, because when conflict starts, men often instinctively become more direct, more intense, more forceful. They raise their voice slightly. They push their point harder. They try to dominate the conversation with logic. But in the emotional amplification system, this strategy backfires.